Hello and welcome back to our next lecture, and I hope you're all doing well, my dear students. I'm sure you guys miss me, and I miss you all as well. Okay, so what we're going to do today is to pick it up where we left off the last time. We will have a continuation. We will continue where we left off, and I think it will be very interesting for us to delve more into the issues of Socrates and his teachings and his philosophical ideas. Okay, so like we discussed previously, or like we discussed in the previous lectures, we must understand that much of what Socrates wrote, right? He did not write anything, but then let me rephrase that. Much of what we know of Socrates and his ideas, his philosophical ideas, his thoughts, his philosophical treatise, much of what we know about him comes from an indirect account from his student Plato, and some acquaintance with Xenophon and Aristophanes. And this is because Socrates did not write anything down, unlike today where we write a lot. Today's world is filled with writers, right? Everybody is a writer in one sense or the other, and a very bad one at that. But for Socrates, he did not write anything down. So much of what we know are like a reconstruction or recreation by his student, especially by his student Plato, and it's a reconstruction of his ideas. Okay, so when we look at all the dialogues of Socrates, oh yeah, by the way, I hope the background music will add some sort of spice, I suppose, to the lecture, because I think that most of the students will be falling asleep whenever you hear this lecture. So I hope the music will keep you awake and fresh, and and passionate about what you study, right? Okay, so moving on. All right. You see, Socrates, he emphasized on the importance of knowledge, right? And the reason why he emphasizes knowledge is because for him it is essential to know the reality of how things are, or the essence of things, the nature of things. And you can only acquire those. You can only have an acquaintance. You can only know what the true essence of a thing is, be not just a thing, but be the true nature of moral issues, such as true nature of right, or what is the true nature of just, or the true nature of beauty, right? In order to know these things, you have to have knowledge, and having a knowledge is what differentiates between somebody who knows things and knows the true essence of things, whom he would consider wise, and those who don't. And for Socrates, many people in society are not interested in knowing the true knowledge, or in knowing the true essence of things, of what is just. For instance, he would say that it is not enough to have an idea about what is right, or what is just, or what is good, or what is beautiful, but then you have to grasp and understand. Like in your mind's eye, you have to see, and you have to understand and know, and even touch in your mind's eye what true beauty is, or what true good is, or what true just is, right? So you can only acquire, and you can only attain those things, attain the knowledge about the true essence of things, only when you have the knowledge, right? And so, but however, unfortunately, Socrates would say, most people in society are not aware, or not just not aware, but they are uninterested in knowing about the knowledge, in knowing about true essence of things. So, in knowing these things, in questioning, in having this knowledge, how do you gain this knowledge? By the way, right? To Socrates, he would say, well, you gain this knowledge by questioning, by not just accepting what is being told to you, or what is being told to you that it is good. You must rather question the existing beliefs, the existing norms, the customs and virtues, even virtues, right? You must ask questions. You must not just simply ask questions for the sake of asking questions, but you must ask questions so that you may better understand what you believe in, right? In other words, say for instance, you may have a certain idea about what is beautiful, or you may have a certain idea about what is good, or what is right? Or what is just? What is justice, right? You may ask. But then the thing is, if you, for instance, if you think that if your idea about right or good or justice is something which was told to you, right? If the definition, if the concept of justice, for instance, is which you hold dear, is something which was told to you, rather than you questioning and investigating and inquiring and then grasping the true essence of justice, if you instead believe what somebody told you what justice is, then, in other words, for Socrates, then you don't have the right idea about what justice is, right? Because you have not questioned it. Why? Because you have simply accepted what was told to you is justice. For you have no say, because you have no say as to what went into the definition, what went into the composition of what it means to be just, what it means to be good, or what it means to be beautiful. So for Socrates, the only way you can attain knowledge and hence know the true essence of things, be it justice or truth or good or right, you must question. You must question the existing beliefs, norms and customs and virtues and even traditions. Because without questioning, you will never know, you will never grasp the true essence of things. And if you can't grasp and understand the true essence of things, then you have no knowledge. And hence, you may speak that you know something, when in reality, you know nothing. And that is the whole idea behind the story which I've mentioned in the first video lecture, where one of his friends went up to the oracle at Delphi and asked her, the oracle, who is the wisest of all? To which the oracle says, right, Socrates. And the reason why the oracle says that Socrates is the wisest of all is because Socrates knows that he knows nothing, right? He knows that he knows nothing, while most of us who don't know anything, in fact, behave and act as though we know things, right? So at least Socrates, knowing the extent of his ignorance and knowing that and admitting to it, makes him the wisest of all. While on the other hand, you and I, or say because you are all holy and all-knowing, while on the other hand, me, I know nothing, but hence I proclaim and think to myself that I know everything. You see? So that is why Socrates emphasizes on the importance of knowing the essence of things, having knowledge. And the only way to gain that knowledge and hence know the essence of thing, true nature of thing, and hence know true nature of, say for instance, justice and truth, is by questioning. You don't accept things blindly. Simply because some morals, some virtues, some customs, some norms, and some beliefs were passed on to you by your parents, by your elders, it does not mean that you should accept them blindly. Rather, you should question them and see if it corresponds to the reality of things, the essence of things, right? And hence, the essential thing is, and the key point that you have to remember, and it is true even to this day, is that, you see, when you start questioning, right, it brings into conflict with existing beliefs, existing customs and traditions, and existing norms, right? And moreover, it brings you into conflict, right? It brings you into conflict with those who have stake in maintaining the status quo, right? And by status quo, I hope that you know the meaning, what I mean by status quo. In other words, but for those who claim that those who claim to maintain the status quo, they are basically the ones who tries to maintain the existing system as it is. They don't want any changes in the society, more or less. They are quite skeptical of things to change, right? They try to maintain the things as they are. They try to maintain the existing system of beliefs, of norms, of institutions, of customs, whatever. They try to maintain that. They are highly averse to changes, and this is quite true in a sense, even in, for instance, because we are in Nagaland, India. So let's, for instance, bring up this issue of this issue in the context of Nagaland, right? So in Nagaland, as you will find, and I hope that you will realize, and I hope you will appreciate what we're going to say, is that, you see, there are people who tries to maintain the status quo. In fact, some of the most powerful institutions try to maintain that. Publicly, outwardly, they may claim that yes, society needs to be changed. There needs to be some sort of changes that are needed in the society. But in reality, in action, when it actually comes to them to put to action what they believe in, they are highly resistant. You see, they are highly resistant. For example, I would say the newspapers. All the newspapers in Nagaland, right, be it the Nagaland Post or Marong Express or Eastern Mirror, those are the big ones in Nagaland, right? Those are, and to a certain extent, Nagaland Page also. But then mostly the first three. You see, these big three newspapers, Nagaland Post, the Marong Express, and Eastern Mirror, those three newspapers, if you have read it and if you are subscribing to those newspapers, then you will realize that they are the keepers of status quo in Nagaland, right? In Nagaland, the reason why I say this is because whenever any writer tries to any writer that is kind of radical in their sense, but in reality those writers are not radical in any sense, but then those they try to inhibit, they try to stop newspapers, they try to stop publishing their articles because it goes against the very interests of those newspapers. In other words, those newspapers, they try to maintain the society as it is. They say we need changes, but then in reality they are against change because they maintain the status quo. They like to maintain the things as they are because it benefits them. That's why they want to maintain the system. Outwardly, they say they want to change the system, but in reality, whenever some writers write very critical of the existing system, of the existing, say for instance, against the government or against the underground groups such as NSCN-IM or NNBGs, then they will stop. They will not write and they will not publish articles that criticizes the government, that criticizes the underground groups, the rebel groups such as NSCN-IM and and NNBGs. You see, so the thing is, even the newspapers in Nagaland, they maintain the status quo. They don't like people to question, right? In fact, the whole society in Nagaland, right, for instance, and of course, I'm using this example to give you an idea about what Socrates was talking about, right? So the thing is, the whole existing societal institutions in Nagaland itself is set up so that there is no changes. You see, they don't like things to be questioned. No one in the society, for instance, if you are in Nagaland, I think you would appreciate this fact. The thing is, you can't question the customs, the traditional customs and traditions, right? You can't. People actually don't know what they are. Like, people themselves don't know what those customs are, those traditions are, but then they vehemently, right? They vehemently make sure that they'll defend that. They'll defend something which they don't even know. You see? And the institutions in Nagaland are set up in such a way that it is there to maintain that customs, whatever the custom is, the tradition, whatever the tradition is. We don't know. Nobody knows. Heck, even me, I don't know. And I'm a Naga, right? I don't even know what they are. So see, so that's what. So it brings into conflict, right? And we will. That's what we will continue. I mean, you get the point. You see, that's the whole idea behind this. You see, people don't actually know what they think they know, right? They think they know something, but they don't actually know. They don't know what they think they know. They are unaware of their ignorance, right? but it requires, like Socrates says, we have to first admit our ignorance. That I don't know anything, right? But I want to know. So that's the issue, and you have to start questioning. In politics, in any society, whenever you start questioning, you become a target, right? You become a target of the politicians. You become the target of the, for instance, in Nagaland, the rebel groups. You become the target of the status quo maintainers, right? Such as all the newspapers I've mentioned, all the politicians, bureaucrats, and tribal leaders. So those are good examples about those who maintain the status quo. So, but nevertheless, you must ask questions, because that is the only way. That is the only way that you come to grasp and understand what Socrates was so adamant about emphasizing the importance of knowledge. Yes, it will bring you into conflict with those in power, but nevertheless, you must go forward with it. So, just to give you an example, right? Just to give you an example, you will find, as you'll find over here in your screen, I've put up this passage, the readings of which I've given you, right? So let's read together, right? So here this passage is from Plato's Apology, as you can see here, Plato's Apology, and here Socrates he reports something at his trial, right? About him, he reports about his failure to find wisdom in any politicians in Athens, right? So it goes something like this. Let's read together, right? Let's read together. So it goes something like this. So here we go. I went to one of those reputed wise, thinking that there, if anywhere, I could refute the oracle and say to it, this man is wiser than I, but you said I was. Then, when I examined this man, there is no need for me to tell you his name. He was one of our politicians. My experience was something like this. I thought that he appeared wise to many people, and especially to himself, but he was not. I then tried to show him that he thought himself wise, but that he was not. As a result, he came to dislike me, and so did many of the bystanders. So I withdrew and thought to myself, I am wiser than this man. It is likely that neither of us knows anything worthwhile, but he thinks he knows something when he does not. Whereas, when I don't know, neither do I think I know. So, I am likely to be wiser than he to this small extent, that I do not think I know what I don't know. Alright, so see, this is quite powerful stuff, right? What he's saying. And if you look at the realities of how things are, this is how generally things are set up in a society, right? In any society, I suppose you can say that. Because here you have a man, Socrates, who the gods themselves told the Athenians that Socrates is the wisest of all. But then Socrates did not simply accept that. He said, no, I think something is wrong. I will try to prove myself that the oracle was wrong, because I don't think I'm wise, because there are many people in the society whom the society acknowledged to be wise and smart and knowledgeable and intellectual and politicians and leaders, so they should be wiser than I am. Why should I, a simple mendicant, living a simple life, right, a mendicant life, how can I be the wisest when the whole society acknowledges our leaders, our intellectuals, our whatnot, to be knowledgeable, to be wise? So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go up to these people who the society acknowledges to be wise, to be knowledgeable, and I'll have a discussion with them and see if I can refute what the oracles said about me, that I am wisest of all. So he tells us this story about him going to meet one of the city politicians. The city politicians, he doesn't name them, but then he says, I went to meet these city politicians, right? Our politician, because everybody in our society acknowledge our politicians to be wise. So I went up to him and I had my conversation, and I discussed things with him. But then, through the conversation, I came to realize that this man, who everybody in the society thinks is wisest and knowledgeable of all, is indeed not wise. Right? He is indeed stupid. He is indeed foolish. Why? Because he thinks that he knows a lot when he does not know. Whereas I don't think I know anything. Right? I don't know anything. Neither do I think I know. At least I know the fact that I don't know anything. So, to this small extent, I think I am wiser than him. So you see, this is what it is. So he goes and shows, and he goes and tells the politician that indeed that he is wrong, that the politician is stupid and is not wise. Whenever Socrates showed to that politician that the politician was not wise, what happened? The result was that the politician did not like him, right? And so did many of the bystanders who were there, right? They also disliked Socrates. Why? Because Socrates showed him, right? Socrates showed the people and the politician that he is not wise. So you see, this is, if you look at this, it is extremely relevant, right? It is extremely relevant as to how Socrates could come up with such a conversation, right? The thing is this: if you look at the reality, this is how things are. Right now, for instance, in any society, be it in India, be it in Nagaland, or be it in, say, for instance, Assam or Manipur or Tripura or wherever, right? There are many people, there are many politicians and leaders and tribal leaders and intellectuals whom the society acknowledges to be wise, to be knowledgeable. But then if you actually go and speak to them and see if that is really true, if what most people in the society think are if you go and speak with those people who the society acknowledges them to be wise and smart and knowledgeable, in reality they're stupid, they're foolish, they're not wise, right? They're not wise, they know nothing, right? They know nothing. So, in fact, I can give you a real life example. You see, for my example, I'm not saying I'm Socrates. Oh, that's too big of a claim, but one can find some parallels with him. But but nevertheless, I have in Nagaland, I have gone and met with so many people who the society, Naga society, acknowledges to be people who knows a lot, who are full of wisdom, who are full of knowledge, who are full of experiences, right? So I've met them, spoke to them, and seen them interact with people, seen them talk, give a speech, give whatnot. But then I think to myself, I thought I knew nothing, right? And I thought I came to meet him or meet her to learn something. But then in reality, I learned nothing. Why? Because it so happened that at least I thought I didn't know anything, but then it turned out that they knew nothing, and then I could learn nothing from them. You see? But then the sad thing, the unfortunate thing is that society acknowledges such kind of people to be full of wisdom, full of knowledge, right? Full of experiences, right? And these people are our leaders, our politicians, our tribal leaders, are big names in the society. So that is the kind of sad thing, that is the kind of sad state that all of us are in. And then this experience which Socrates had 2000 years ago is the same even to this day. Nothing has changed. And this is what makes the ideas of Socrates even more powerful and even more relevant and even more essential for us to ponder and think about these things. Right? So here we go, and then there's another passage I would like to show you guys. Again, this is very, 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 very interesting one, right? Very interesting one. You like it? Here we go. And this is from, okay, so here we go. This is the page number. If you don't have it, if you have it, then just please go to that page number. If you don't have it, that's fine. You can we'll read along together, right? The more, the merrier. Okay, so here we go. So Here. This is from Xenophon's. Right? This is an account from Xenophon. So here, what we find is this. This is what we find. Here, Plato Socrates questions Alcibiades' qualifications for political leadership. Because remember, Alcibiades was a very he comes from a very noble family. He is wise, he is smart, right? He has an absolute stellar of a guardian by the name Pericles, right? The great Athenian citizen Pericles. So hence, Alcibiades was very ambitious, and he wanted to lead. He wanted to be the leader of Athens. But then Socrates questions Alcibiades' qualifications for political leadership. So he says here, so this is how the conversation goes. Let's read together, right? So Socrates says, and he asks, right then, you plan, as I say, to come forward and advise the Athenians sometime soon. Suppose I stopped you as you were about to take the podium and asked, Alcibiades, what are the Athenians proposing to discuss? You are getting up to advise them because it's something you know better than they do, aren't you? What would you reply? Alcibiades replies, yes, I suppose I would say it was something that I know better than they do. Socrates says, so it's on matters you know about that you are a good advisor. Alcibiades, to which replies, of course. Socrates then asks, Now, the only things you know are what you have learned from others or found out for yourself. Isn't that right? What else could I know? Could you ever have learned or found out anything without wanting to learn it or work it out for yourself? Alcibiades replies, no, I couldn't have. Is that right? Would you have wanted to learn or work out something that you thought you understood? Of course not. So there was a time when you didn't think you knew what you now understand. There must have been. Then Socrates replies, but I've got a pretty good idea what you've learned. Tell me if I've missed anything. As far as I remember, you learned writing and lyre playing and wrestling, but you didn't want to learn aloes playing. These are the subjects that you understand, unless perhaps you have been learning something while I wasn't looking. But I don't think you have been, either by night or by day, on your excursions from home. Alcibiades replies, no, those are the only lessons I took. Well then, it is when the Athenians are discussing how to spell a word correctly that you stand up to advise them. Zeus, I never do that. Then, is it when they're discussing the note on the lyre? No, never. And Socrates says, but surely there's nothing in the habit of discussion. But surely they are not in the habit of discussing wrestling in the assembly. Certainly not. And then it goes on, and then Socrates replies, well, who are the ones making the mistakes? Surely not the ones who know. And this is where I want all of you to pay attention. Right? This is very, very essential. Of course not. Well, since it's not those who know, and it's not those who don't know, and know they don't know, is there anyone left except those who don't know but think they do know? No, they are the only ones left. So, this is the ignorance that causes bad things. This is the most disgraceful sort of stupidity. Alcibiades says, yes. Then Socrates replies, and isn't it most harmful and most contemptible when it is ignorance of the most important things? Alcibiades says, very much so. Socrates replies, well, can you name anything more important than what's just and admirable and good and advantageous? Alcibiades says, no, I really can't. Then Socrates replies, but aren't those the things you say you are wavering about? Alcibiades says, yes. Socrates replies, so, if you are wavering, it's obvious from what we have said that not only are you ignorant about the most important things, but you also think you know what you don't know. Alcibiades admits, I guess that's right. To which Socrates says, good God, Alcibiades, what a sorry state you are in. I hesitate to call it by its name, but still, since we are alone, it must be said. You are wedded to stupidity, my good fellow. Stupidity in the highest degree. Our discussion and your own words convict you of it. This is why you are rushing into politics before you've got an education. You are not alone in this sad state. You've got most of our serious politicians for company. There are only a few exceptions, among them perhaps your guardian Pericles. Now, what a wonderful passage, isn't it? I could read this passage over and over and over again and never get bored, because this is how interesting this passage is, and there's much that we can learn from this passage alone. So now, as we have read, Alcibiades was ambitious, so Socrates and Alcibiades were discussing, and then just for hypothetical situation, right? Just for example, just for make-believe situation, Socrates asked, "Hey, Alcibiades, imagine that you're supposed to go up to the podium and advise the Athenians. So I stopped you, right? Say that I stopped you before you go up to the podium, and then I asked you, so you're going to talk about things which you think that you know, and you're going to advise the Athenians." Alcibiades says, "Yes, I am going to do that." And then Socrates asks Alcibiades, "Do you know this? Do you know that?" Then Alcibiades says, "No, I don't know what this is. I don't know what that is." So then Socrates says, "Yeah, then pretty much you don't know anything, but you think that you know, and on top of that, you are trying to advise the Athenians, your society, and you're trying to give them advice on what, right? And you're trying to give advice to them, really, from a person who knows nothing." And that's why he says, and I'm going to highlight over here, right? That's why, because you have no education, because when he says before you've got an education, as you can see over here, Socrates is saying, before you truly understand, before you have truly grasped the nature of what it means to be a leader, what it takes to be a good statesman, right? What it means to be a good leader, right? In other words, do you have the art of ruling, right? Because for Socrates, the art of politics or the art of ruling, it simply means how to make people into better human beings, right? That's the whole issue. That's the whole issue of Socrates, right? In order for you to be a leader, right, and do something good for the society, you must know the art of politics. And what is the art of politics? In other words, you must make your people into a better human beings. That's the issue, right? But then Alcibiades, young and naive and ambitious, not knowing anything, simply thinks that because he's ambitious enough and comes from a good family, he is ready to be a leader, right? But then Socrates points out to Alcibiades' stupidity, his ignorance, his lack of knowledge, and says, because of this stupidity, you are rushing into politics before you've got an education, right? And the thing is this, and Socrates says, but you are not alone in this, right? You are not alone in this stupidity, right? You've got most of our silly politicians for company, and this is true even to this day, right? If you look at your own politicians, no matter wherever you are, from wherever you are watching, most of the politicians are like stupid, right? They are. That's why they have rushed into politics before they've got an education. In other words, before they know what it means to rule, what it means to lead the people, what it means to make the people into better human beings, right? That's why nowadays most of the college and university students, they like to join politics, right? They like to join politics. Nowadays the university, the student unions, the student federations are more, those people who participate, they are more politically ambitious, right? Without knowing anything about politics, right? For them, if you tell them that you don't know anything about politics, they will be offended. They will tell you, no, I know politics. Yes, for them the definition of politics is, stabbing each other in the back, lying, deception, deceiving, right, to get an upper hand. That's politics, but that's not politics, right? According to Socrates, that's not politics. Politics is something that you make your people into a better human being. That's what politics is. That's what it takes to be a leader, right? But then Alcibiades is not. So Socrates points out to Alcibiades' ignorance, that is, his lack of knowledge. And to give you a better idea, let's read one more passage, and this will give you a better idea about what we're discussing, right? So here we are. So here, Socrates is consoling Klakon. He's the son of Ariston, and he's the brother of Socrates' student Plato. Klakon is Plato's brother, right? So here Socrates is trying to show Klakon that he is too hastily he is too hurriedly rushing into politics without knowing anything. And I think this will bring a lot of peril, and I think you'll understand why. So here we go. Let's read together, alright? So it goes something like this. When Ariston's son, Klakon, set his sights on becoming the city's leading statesman and tried to address the assembly despite not yet being 20 years old, no one else of his family and friends could prevent him from being dragged away from the podium and become a laughingstock. But Socrates, who was friendly towards him on account of both Socrates, Klakon's son, and Plato, prevented him all by himself. When he met up with him, he first caught his attention with words to this effect. And this is what Socrates is saying to Klakon. Have you made up your mind to become our leading statesman, Klakon? He said. To which Klakon replies, Indeed I have, Socrates. Well, that's certainly a fine ambition, if ever there was one, Socrates replies. Right? And so Socrates goes on, if you succeed, you will clearly be able to get anything you desire. You have the means to help your friends, promote your family's fortune, enhance your country's influence, and make a name for yourself first in our city, then in Greece generally, and perhaps, like Themistocles, even among foreigners. Right? Wherever you are, all eyes will be on you. To which Klakon began to swell with pride at the sound of these words, and he was happy to linger. Whereupon Socrates said, This much is clear, isn't it, Klakon? If you want to be held in esteem, you need to help your city. Right? Then Klakon replies, Certainly. Then, by all means, don't be coy. Socrates says, Tell us the first thing you'll do to benefit your city. Klakon went silent, as if considering for the first time where he would start. Then Socrates said, If you wanted to improve a friend's fortune, you try to make him wealthier. Wouldn't you likewise try to make your city wealthier? Klakon replies, Certainly. Would it be wealthier if its revenues increased? That stands to reason, he said. Tell us then, he said, what are the cities? So Socrates is asking Klakon, Tell us then, what are the city's current sources and amounts of revenues? You've clearly considered the issue so as to get the most out of any sources that are underperforming and to aid anything that are being overlooked. Klakon replies, Honestly, I haven't given it any thought. Well, he said, if you have overlooked this detail, at least tell us about the city's expenditures, since you also clearly intend to eliminate any superfluous ones. Klakon replies, Frankly, I haven't had time for that yet either. So shall we defer the business of making the city wealthier? Socrates asked. After all, how can anyone oversee expenses and revenues if he isn't even familiar with them? Klakon says, Well, Socrates, it's also possible to enrich a city from its enemies' resources. So Socrates replied, That's certainly true, provided that the city is stronger than its enemies, but if it's weaker, it could even lose what it already had. That's true, Klakon replies. So Socrates replied, So, anyone who intends to offer advice regarding whom to attack should know the strength both of his own city and of its enemies, so that he may recommend going to war if his city is stronger, but urge caution if it turns out to be weaker than its enemies. To which Klakon replies, That's correct. To which Socrates says, Then first, tell us the respective strength of our city's army and navy, and next that of our enemies. To which Klakon replies, Frankly, I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head. Well, Socrates says, Well, if you have it written down somewhere, fetch it. I really would like to hear it. Then Klakon replies, To be honest, I don't even have it written it down yet. Then Socrates replies, so shall we also hold off any military advice, at least for the time being. You probably haven't gotten around to, again, I would like to make sure that, please pay attention to this, alright? Very essential. Socrates is saying, so Socrates is replying to Klakon. So probably you haven't gotten around to reviewing these things because of their magnitude and the fact that you are just starting out as our leading statesman. But I'm sure that you have already given careful consideration to the city's defense, and that you know both how many of our garrisons are strategically placed and how many aren't, as well as how many border guards are competent and how many aren't. And I'm sure that you'll recommend enlarging the strategically placed garrisons and abolishing the superfluous ones. Socrates goes on, be careful that your desire for distinction doesn't have the opposite effect, Klakon. Don't you see how risky it is for someone to say or do things he doesn't understand? Reflect on others. You know who are the kind of people to say or do things they obviously don't understand. Do you think that their conduct wins them more praises and admiration or blame and contempt? Then reflect on those who actually understand what they both say and do. You'll find, I suggest, that in every endeavor, the people awarded distinction and admiration consist of those with the best understanding, whereas the ones who endure infamy and contempt consist of the most ignorant. So, if your desire is to be distinguished and admired in the city, try to achieve the best understanding possible of the things you want to do. If you try your hand at politics, after you have outdone everyone else in this regard, it wouldn't surprise me if you easily achieve your desired goals. Now, this passage is from Xenophon's Memorabilia, right? Now, again, another powerful passage from Socrates. Now, these are the things which we can never get tired of hearing over and over again, because these are telltale signs about the problems in politics, about those who join politics, about those who claim to be the leaders, about those who claim to know things in politics and in everything else, right? So these are the things which we must remember, and this passage is a telltale sign and a warning to all the future leaders as well, right? Because like Klakon, who is ignorant of so many things, right? Klakon says he wants to be the leader of Athens. Then Socrates asks, do you know about our accounts? Where we make money from, where do we get our revenues? Klakon says, I don't know. Okay, now what about our defense? He doesn't know. What about our army? I don't know, right? So if you don't know anything, you have no clue about the workings of our city, of Athens, how do you expect to be a leader, right? Similarly, nowadays, all the politicians, as well as want to be politicians, all those young student youths who wants to be a politician, if you ask them, they are like Klakon. They have no clue. They have no clue about the revenue, about the expenses and expenditures and revenues of our state, right? They have no clue about how the society is run, what the key problems are, what are the problems being faced by the majority of the people, right? What needs to be done? What are the main problems, right? What are the key limitations that's hampering the development? All these things, they have no clue. They want to join politics because, hey, I want to be a leader, right? Well, who doesn't, right? In Nagaland, everybody wants to be a leader, right? That's why you have so many organizations, right? So many organizations. Everybody wants to be a leader. In fact, in Nagaland, I think the number of organizations, civil society organizations, is more than the population. I think maybe half, right? Who knows? So see, this is where we are, and this is the absolute, impeccable power of Socrates, right? And those things which he dealt with 2000 years ago in Athens, right? Far away place. They are so relevant even to this day, right? Even to this day. Not just in Nagaland, but also in India, right? Like for instance, the Congress Party, right? Very, very good example, Congress Party. Rahul Gandhi, he has no clue about politics, right? He has no clue about what India is, how it's supposed to be run. But just because he comes from a very affluent family and affluent family of Nehru family, right? He thinks that he is fit to be the Prime Minister of India, right? He thinks that he is fit to lead the Congress party. When in reality, there are so many better leaders than he, right? You see, so Rahul Gandhi is an example of Klakon, right? Much in the same way, most of the politicians and leaders in Nagaland are also like Klakon. And all the wannabe politicians, the youth, the student leaders, they are Klakons, right? They have no clue. They just want to be leaders. Why? Because, hey, I want to be a leader, right? Who doesn't? Everybody wants to be a leader. So, I hope that these passages and this lecture today has helped you understand Socrates better. And I do hope that, I do hope that you guys will appreciate what is being discussed and appreciate the ideas of Socrates and see the relevance of his philosophical treatise and political treatise in today's society. Alright, we end the lecture here today, and I'll see you soon. Alright, thank you so much. Thank you.